Bonjour, bonne journée à date. Ouais.
Well, good afternoon. I mean, you're not too convincing. Among you, how many have heard about bone structure? Please raise your hand. Well, I didn't come for nothing. It's encouraging. So I will.
Quand je dis construire,
So use it to build or become obsolete or fall behind. At Bone Structure, in fact, we deal with residential, light commercial as well. But the important thing today is that you leave this room to do like the other people who are converted, but we have to convert other people. How can they follow the parade? So, in fact, because they have to be able to deliver the goods. And thank you very much, Sébastien Frenette, Mr. Brodeur, Jerry Latman, and Daniel Urtubis for having invited me to make this presentation. They probably will regret it afterward, and I'll be deleted from the list for the next years. When they talked to me about CAMBIN, I heard about it because we have in our office 70 people, and we have people working in San Francisco, Stanford University at Berkeley, so bright people. But when he told me, listen, it's BIM, a can of beans, well, it's just to put some humor in the presentation. So who are those among you who can tell me where there was evolution in the residential construction between 777 and today? What technologies were used then? Don't hesitate, you can win a chocolate. It's worth it. Electricity, wow. It's, well, okay, you're a little far for the chocolate, but there you are. I'm going to throw it to you because I feel that the person just beside you is a lawyer, so if I make a mistake, she's going to punish me. Well, it's not the answer I wanted, but it's a good answer nevertheless. You know, the more you become an adult and intelligent, you do analysis paralysis. This is why BIM is important, because it allows everyone to reflect at the same time and not individually on a linear plane. So the technology is this one on the photo. It's been 350 years in North America that we build it the same way, while we have independent cars with our that are unmanned. BIC has more quality control process than all the other things you buy in your life, whether it be your chalet, your house, or something else. And when you come back home, look at your.
D'un côté, on parle de faire avancer l'industrie avec BIM.
On the one hand, we want the industry to advance with BIM, and then we have 99% of people intend to do the good thing, but it's not what happens. All the industries evolved with new technologies and new material. So the conclusion is to use the right material for the good things. So at the professional level, you have to use the proper systems and the proper processes. Process will reach our goal. For 10, 12 years, we noticed that wherever we work in Canada, in fact, and look at the West Coast in the States, there were a lot of good intentions, but between the professional level and the execution, there is a big disconnect. So you talk a language, but the people on the site speak another language. It's not because their language is more or less advanced than yours. It's just because the language is different. When we understood as well, we conducted research throughout the world, is that we have an industry that's broken. Why? Because there's a lack of integration. So I always like to say architects work together, because we learned in a university that you have to work as a team. The first thing you tell students, don't forget you have to work as a team. And I'm always surprised, whether I go to McGill or Stanford for a conference, that the architecture campus, well, they're at Berkeley, but the campus is there. The engineering campus is half a kilometer or a kilometer further. The business campus is another corner, and the legal campus is in the other corner. But in all faculties, we tell them, and you have to work together. While these people come in the industry and they work together as engineers, and to say that architects do not understand anything, and same for the others. Lack of skilled workers. It's not a surprise for anyone. In our industry, 77% of the contractors in residential in California And I repeat, 77% are not able to find qualified carpenters. I don't know whether recently you looked at the wooden constructions. You can see same thing for various industries at the professional level. So the lack of manpower, skilled manpower, it's well known in various sectors. The lack of process, this is what you have, is the takeaway message here. Process, process, process. The very cheap BIC that you might have in your hand offers a lot of good control, because it will show you that we're very far behind in our industry, despite our good intents. Last thing, and I will ask a question: how many among you recycle things? In fact, very fast, before the person beside you just hit you. Those who compost. Well, like my kindergarten teacher said, I am so moved. Great social behavior. You have to know that up to 60% of the waste that are buried come from the construction industry. If you go on the site of a many thousand square feet, you have such a volume of waste. In fact, that if you put, it's terrible. There's a dichotomy in our industry. We prone things individually, but at the collective level, we are completely off. Common denominator, regardless of the industry you're working in, whether it's professional, whether it's a product and service industry, those of you who are 27 years old like me, you will see that there are various movements, various trends. In the 70s, it was not rare to see that whether we're dealing with an architect firm or some other firm, I've been 25 years with you, so he'll be given a pencil. Then there was a diversification of all the companies, GE and others. We will diversify, so we will work in bacon even if we're specialized in airplanes. Why? Because diversification will allow us to attain the objectives for our investors. This is a very marked trend. And today we are somewhere else, and it's stimulated by the generation after us. Today, we have a purpose, a raison d'être. Young people want to come and work with you because we have a purpose. We stand out. We do something different, not necessarily for a planet, but for a cause. And at the same time, we have to learn how to really work together. And to learn to work together, well, platforms such as BIM allows that. So BIM is no longer an option. Build with it or become obsolete. It's same thing for people who don't have a smartphone. I do know a gentleman who succeeds very well and does not have a smartphone. He's not very difficult to reach, but he always phones back, returns your call. Design efficiency, energy efficiency, building efficiency, and the building efficiency was in fact forgotten in all this, and systems integration is key. And we have informatic systems that are very powerful, and software engineers give us tools. So it's now time that you get the tools from the site to bring them, in fact, upstream for quality control to be done upstream. And this is why BIM is so interesting. Now, technology. So bone structure, go to bonestructure.ca. I was told that I could sell my things, so there it is. So it's a big mechano game. In fact, that is in 42 countries. So you have the material of the mechano. So in fact, everybody, you're all working in building steel buildings. So the process is in the material. Among you, anybody have children?
Sans le regarde le tapis avec, si tu peux venir les chercher. Bon, en tout cas,
So you all build skyscrapers. So you all have children? Well, give them Play-Doh to your children, children that are 2, 3, 4 years old. You ask them, you give them an exercise, build a small house. Even an architect or engineers, you can do that in your own office. And I've done it recently, so it's quite surprising that BIM certified, consenting adults, MBA certified, that they love play with Play-Doh. In fact, a child that's 3 years old would have succeeded more with the Play-Doh. You'll see that there will be Play-Doh everywhere, under his nails, on the table, on the floor, and do the same exercise with children. Those of you who never played with Lego, and surprisingly enough, in a few minutes you will see impressive achievements. So, and I insist here on the word language. The bone structure language is BIM. So 15 years ago, we started learning the words with the assumption what you see is what you get. We had an event with architects in Los Angeles where we showed a house of 215 feet long that we've just built that goes under a stream. 215 feet long is 5 bus with less of 5 millimeters strength. This wouldn't have been possible if we hadn't had BIM technologies. So rapid manufacturing. There again, the intent is BIM. But what comes afterwards? You can work with BIM with all the professionals because now you know that you're going to work together and not in a linear way, one after the other. How does that translate in the industry to go to the end of the food chain? This is how we're often, as professionals, we keep ourselves separated from the rest. But the impact is not only with the BIM tool. The impact has to be felt to the end of the chain. And this is what we found with people who are manufacturing parts for us, and it goes through the BIM software. I'm taking the example of bone, but it's to have you reflect at what you do professionally and how all this will have an impact on your various clients. So you see our site. It's zero waste. It's not some waste. It's not material waste because we don't provide any. It's zero waste. So we talked a lot about recycling. 2 years ago, I was invited in Calgary for a conference on recycling, and a lot of people were there for 2 days, and people wondered how they would explain recycling, in fact, to everybody, to schools and all that. And I come up there and I say, well, we don't have any recycling because we don't have any waste with BIM. Create a process, developing our process created opportunities. Our intent when we started was to be scalable. I'm sorry, I couldn't find a right word in French. And to be scalable for 42 countries, we had to find a way to have a rapid expansion. So yes, through BIM, we had energy simulations because our clients in California have various resources that we don't have here in Quebec and elsewhere. But the energy analysis becomes much easier to do, and you have to optimize depending on the process. Virtual reality, yes, indeed, it becomes one of the complement of the BIM language. It's very nice to have the verb, the noun, and the complement, but how can we in fact, illustrate the sentence? Well, in our company and at Pomerleau, and in your companies, this technology has been used for many years, and we're trying to bring together all the parties to push the limit, because be careful, softwares might be developed that won't be able to be used by you. So we have to get to a better integration of design where the client, the client has his say. Whether for the client, the architect, municipalities, trades, etc. Up to now, we worked with 72 municipalities, and I can tell you that some among them are still on the DOS system. Other is dust. It's another word, but they're working with DOS, D-O-S. It's more than pathetic. Each time I see a plan rolls in my office, and we keep seeing that. And it's terrible. If we send that in California or in Colorado, it really, my hair stands. In fact, we have, so we allow designers and architects to trust their own engineering vision. And to tell you how language becomes important, once again, in the weekend, we were at the kiosk at Dwell on Design, and all the architects who came to meet with us, developers, etc., we asked them the question, are you on BIM? Do you work with BIM? So many said, what? what are we talking about here? So some of them were very excited to say that they were on AutoCAD. So when we say that we can push and push again to make sure that all the various stakeholders be involved, well, here it goes to this wall here. So what you see is what you get. So in the spec, you can assemble this type of wall, but to install this over a small window in the kitchen, it's exactly the same process, the same know-how for all the stakeholders involved. It allows us to achieve very interesting things. Many people think that contemporary architecture is easy to say, because it's linear. No, contemporary architecture tells you that you can put an OG to
en amont. Alors,
to hide a damage. So whether we talk about design, whether it's accuracy for the materials, or accuracy to make sure that the assembly is impeccable, we have to teach the bone language to the others. So bone structure language, it becomes a language, a lexicon that uses BIM verbs, that uses BIM tools. So a standard of bone structure, it's instructions for design, for engineering, for the site. And once again, the instruction for our site, I don't know whether we have that in the presentation, but oftentimes people make presentations without knowing what they have on their slide. So our instructions for the site, in fact, whether they're written, talked, or what, you can use battery drill to execute the BIM projects with a lot of accuracy. We are not BIM poets yet, but we are rhyming quite well internally and externally. This is where I would like to hear what she said. We are not BIM poets yet, but we are rhyming quite well internally and externally. Did you hear? Is it okay? So the engineering structure to the finished house, well, whether people work with Autodesk Revit, well, we use Robot Inventor and others, and we get what we have. We have what we, as we say, the way we work. Now, I would like to bring you to culture, and this is a very important point. If you have takeaway words for today, I know that you all took notes very fervently. Please look at me for a few seconds instead of looking at your table. Process, communication with the language, and culture. And yes, technology. But technology can serve your technology only if there's a culture. If not, people will always say, I don't have time. Next project, yes, I will use it. I think I'll use that culture. I call that my blender. And I always say that regardless of the project, whether we had a positive result where we found a lot of opportunities, there are always ingredients that are part of this project. And these ingredients can be used for another project. And when I talk about ingredients, it can be an individual in your team who resists change. We can introduce him or bring him in for another project. So in the blender, we put a lot of ingredients. Obviously, we add some kale because it has to be green. It has to be healthy. But the idea here is that not only ideas, not only people who are most advanced in your firms and your offices, we have to tell our people how important are the processes and what they can offer us to save time, to save money, and to be more efficient. So it's a language that has to be taught. Many people saw something that looked like this. When we talk about communication, it can seem primary, but it works. And I think that BIM is almost there. We've not reached the cell phone, the interglobal cell. We're still at that level, but someone has to offer in someone else in its environment, whether it's a client, whether it's an advanced professional, whether it's a worker on the site. Altogether, we have to teach it and make it desirable. Well, how do we make it desirable? I give you the example between the Play-Doh and the Lego. It's the same thing. If you always worked with Play-Doh, well, Lego is not necessarily desirable as long as you haven't touched it or seen it. Last weekend, once again, I'm always relate to you what I did during the weekend. Maybe it's because on the jet lag. It's because people said, well, contemporary house like this. Well, I say, listen, you've known the architecture with the A form. The A, the nice triangle. What do you have in this triangle? Are you still there, or am I alone here up there? You need energy? Okay, chocolate again. So what we have in the residential homes in the A form, nothing. It's like going and buy a car and not having access to the back of the car.
Pas surprenant parce que ça fait à peu près.
I told people it's not surprising because for 4 or 5 years, we North Americans, we discovered cappuccino thanks to Starbucks or Tim Hortons.
Cappuccino, ça fait 2000 ans que ça existe.
Well, you have to say that this has been in existence 2,000 years, but it's not because someone in your team doesn't know what Revit or BIM is that he wouldn't be interested in listening what you have to tell him. What we do when we receive projects from external offices, we say, well, come and check this, come and look at this. Look, it's really interesting. Look at, it's all integrated in the system. So what was that done? Is it SketchUp? No, it's not SketchUp. Well, that's a joke, SketchUp mustard. It's a French joke. So what we often see is that what's at stake here is the answer we get in most of the industries, the left, right, and center. We always did it that way. Your idea is good, but I hope that we'll have the right budget for next year. But if it were to be approved, don't worry, I was all in. So I'll be behind you. So everyone has to be able to go forward and want to go forward. It brings us back to the conversation with the municipalities and the politicians and the authorities. The answer is collaboration and communication. Oh, I have a quiz. Are we plugged on the internet here? Certainly not, because we're too technologic for that.
Let's click it, and we're done. No, you got. Oh, back there. Can you click back there on the link?
Vous pouvez cliquer sur le lien. À l'arrière, les techniciens. We are in a conference on technology. It proves my point. Normally, I should not even ask the question. Click the link or click on the link. Please show that we are so technology advanced. Cliquez sur le lien. Ça marche pas?
Doubt. Sure? Well, anyway. Ce qui aurait été intéressant.
So it would have been interesting to have the questionnaire or the quiz live, everyone, on your smartphone, because we could have come up with a collective conclusion. But I was at Dwell in Design that last weekend, and our line worked very well. But once again, we were at a conference where everybody was preaching and trying to spread the good word, and so the technology didn't work. So it brings me back to my first point. We all have to work together, but we have to go from A to Z. We have to cover the whole chain up to the site. So
Le reste de l'histoire. Merci.
the weakest link will give problems.
Est-ce que nous avons des questions pour Marc?
Any questions for Marc? We're still a premium product. In other words, in the residential environment, we have net zero construction. We are, in fact, the Tesla of the industry. This is why we're so popular now in California. Without thinking without thinking of the unfortunate event of 8,400 houses that just burned. So better, faster, and more affordable, like Tesla. All these buildings are custom-made. We're not a business of prefab or modular houses. It's not that at all. We're a technology that was shaped with processes that were integrated with a material that helps us to serve the residential and light commercial industries. So here we have 1,300 companies that use that in the States. So it's a premium product, to answer your question. But if you try to make this type of architecture with a lot of windows, you cannot be as competitive as we are. Something else that industry has to learn, only to finish on this, to end on this, you're probably suffer from this, but people will talk to you about construction budget, but they do not talk to their colleagues who talk about operating budget, and all this in a society that's called green and well living and healthy living and all that. There's still a kind of hypocrisy or a human naivety, where all that and all there, in fact, to work, in fact, together. I won't talk about the Millennium Building in San Francisco. It's, in fact, it's a 40-floor building that is sinking. So we have to work all together, and this is an example. Construction budget and operating budget have to work together for the long-lasting construction. Jerry, Mr. Beauvais, congratulations for your presentation. I met with you a long time ago, but thank you for your presentation. So what do you deliver concerning BIM information? What do you deliver to the buyer, and what shape is your information in? Let's say that the buyer as such, well, it depends. You have to look at our site assembly plans. That's quite special in our case because we in fact have a digital. Everything is digitized. So honestly speaking, private buyers, we have a file for them, but finally we give them the render, what's rendered. The look. We don't give them the mechanical or technical drawings. We have them in our files, but we give them all the look, the appearance, all the perspective,
Format digital, il y en a
leveling and all that.
mais pour tout le reste du système, parce qu'on a des...
But we have intellectual property for these elements that we can share with the buyers. So thank you very much for this provocative presentation. It's true that we can reinforce communication with the BIM system to have everybody working and collaborating. But what I saw here for the assembly, I see that behind this culture, other processes can be incorporated from the manufacturing industry. It's clear that the houses can be swiftly assembled and avoid waste. It's because a lot of work was done over the last 10 years. A lot of work has been done by the designers. And how can the designers and manufacturers work together? We created interface between the various existing platforms to reach the manufacturers. So the manufacturer with whom we have dealings, we have due diligence. They have Six Sigma ISO. It's not really fun to work with us during the due diligence period. So once we made sure that they have the good equipment to serve our technology, the good informatic systems to work with our computers directly, that's where we're at. So all our politicians are talking about the Industry 4.0, but I can tell you that some invested over the last year approximately $6 million only to upgrade their equipment, their computers. Your reflection is very good. This is why I said it's important for us to learn how to work all together. I'm not talking only about professionals. Well, already there, it's going to be incredible when engineers, architects, and designer will be able to work all together. Right there, it's going to be a huge leap. But we have to go to the end of the chain, of the food chain. Only then will we be able to have the same language, speak the same language. Thank you very much.